Andy Hoare. Welcome to Friday 15 with Master B2B. Brian Beck here with Andy Hoare, my partner in this thought leadership series. And we're rocking it out this Friday, March 8th. Looking forward to this topic today, Andy. We got some cool stuff going on. Welcome. I hope you're ready for the weekend.
Yeah, it's good to be here, and got a good topic today about channel conflict, and it's a perennial topic, so it'll be a fun one to discuss.
Yeah, this is a huge topic, Andy, that I continue to hear, buzz in the industry about, concerns about it, fears about it, preventing action all over the place. So we're going to tackle this one head on, and we're going to talk about it in the context of marketplaces. So even our breaking news today, Andy, is all about marketplaces. So at a really, so our topic today is: do marketplaces resolve or complicate channel conflict? And this week, Andy, or I guess it was last week, I had an opportunity to catch up with one of the big VCs that focuses on this space called Bowery Capital. I check in with these guys every so often. You and I both do, just to find out kind of what's going on in this world. We hear today all about AI, and the whole buzz is all about how to use AI for your business and B2B. Well, if we rewind maybe 12, 18, 24 months, it was all about marketplaces. Should I create a company-owned marketplace? Should I that sort of thing? And some of the news that we're seeing, and some of the things I heard from Bowery is that listen to these things, these investment cycles are sort of cyclical. They go up and down, and folks invest in things when they're hot and all the rest. AI is that today, but in the marketplace sector, look at these valuations. Those on the podcast, or those seeing on podcast, I'm showing a slide here that shows Series A marketplace valuations of marketplaces versus other sectors. And marketplaces have plummeted, back in 2021, $100 million valuations, pre-money valuations on average. This is what the value at which companies invest in these business models. It's fallen by 2/3. They're now down to about 33 million. And this is in the world of what's coming next, this is a big deal, right, Andy? I mean, companies are not getting the same values.
Yeah, I think there's a lot going on here. There could be other reasons for these valuations falling, which is just a general downdraft in investment in all things technology. Except for AI, we've seen a lot of software vendors and SIs, et cetera. Their valuations have come down from peaks in the 2021 time on the heels of the pandemic. Yep. So that could be explaining some of this. But I do think, and you and I agree on this, that there's something else going on here as well. There was maybe a bit of froth and exuberance around the idea of vertical marketplaces. But let's be clear on this. When we say marketplaces, there really are kind of at least three different types of marketplaces, and sometimes they get conflated.
Yeah.
One is the horizontal marketplace, where they sell everything across all different verticals. That's the Amazons of the world.
Amazon, right. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Then there's the vertical specific marketplace, like a Chem Direct, which sells things in the chemical industry. That's kind of what we're talking about here. There's also a third one, which is kind of a company-owned marketplace. And this is technology powered by companies like Miracle and VTEX and Oro and others. Everybody seems to have kind of a marketplace capability. And that's where you can be a brand manufacturer and bring your channel over to your website, take the money for an order, and then distribute the order based on geography or preference of some sort. Mm-hmm. Those are the three types in general. I think what we're talking about here is kind of these vertical marketplaces, which I think there's something that's become kind of clear about them. And I think you and I agree on this, that they do require scale to be effective, because in my opinion, they're the best of both worlds when it comes to selling, and the worst of both worlds. They're the best of both worlds in that they don't have the legacy infrastructure that a lot of companies do with branches and long-standing delivery promises, et cetera, that say distributors have. And they don't have the disintermediation that brand manufacturers have. But on the other hand, they also don't have the legacy of customer interaction, and they aren't selling anything direct themselves. They don't make anything. What we've seen, just like with the vertical market or the horizontal marketplaces, the only way to really be successful here is to have tremendous scale and be able to deliver like very specific domain expertise and monetize it. That's a lot of ifs.
That's right. And, it's interesting, Andy, we have an example in here. This fellow named Brad Jacobs, who started United Waste and XPO Logistics, which were both kind of roll-ups, massive roll-ups, and they have marketplace elements to them. Well, he he just announced recently that he's getting into the building supply industry with something called QXO. And to your point about scale, Andy, $1 billion, right, is what is being invested. He raised some money. He's putting some of his own capital into this. So to your point about scale, I think you're right. I think we've realized that, these vertical marketplace models in particular are actually difficult to execute.
Yes.
Your worst of both worlds is true in some ways. And we follow this sector. We know that, companies, we talk to the people building these marketplaces, and we know how hard it is. So in the question today is,
yeah,
yes,
there's tremendous opportunity. It's very alluring because it's fractured.
right.
Both sides of the equation don't do it particularly well. There's opportunity there, but they think it's a bit like founding a software company. I think sometimes,
Yeah.
and it's like, oh, we see an opportunity here. Let's go do a new CRM. Let's just launch it, and everybody will use it. You're also, interfering with long-standing customer relationships, and
Right.
monetize this. You can't just be the place everybody goes and does research and says, oh, this is great. Now we go back to my distributor and make the purchase. So you can be web roomed as well.
Well, now this is the heart of our conversation today is channel conflict. And how do we define it? I go to the authority of all things, Wikipedia, right, Andy? Isn't that the authority? Anyway, so I pulled this definition from Wikipedia. And I think when we think about channel conflict, it's really about the manufacturers in many ways, right? That's where a lot of it centers. And this definition, I think, captures it. Channel conflict occurs when manufacturers, brands, disintermediate their channel partners, such as distributors, retailers, dealers, sales reps. That's, internal conflict there a little bit, sales reps, by selling their products directly to buyers through general marketing methods or over the internet. Now, if you look at the math, Andy, right? I mean, if a manufacturer is selling its products, directly just to an end buyer, they got a lot of margin to work with. It can be scary for the distributor, but the manufacturers, they're terrified of channel conflict. I hear it every single day from the mid market and large manufacturers out there. We don't want to disrupt our channel. So this question is a big one.
Yeah, but here's the news for all those folks, and I don't mean this in kind of a cute way, but the channel conflict predated you,
Right.
and the channel conflict will post-date you as well.
Right.
You're not going to be able to change the channel conflict because it's inherent in the business model. The question is, how do you grapple with it? And you can resign yourself to saying, well, we're not going to change anything about our traditional selling models internally and externally, because you make a great point about sales reps are also an internal kind of channel that you have to manage. But you can either do nothing and just let the chips fall where they may, or you can actually reprioritize your strategy around where are your customers. That should be what's driving all this stuff. And I've said this many times. I feel like a broken record on this one. I joke that I don't think I've ever met a customer who wakes up in the morning and says, I'm going to go to this channel and make my purchase. Channels are a discussion that take place with companies internally because they've aligned around these things. They have resources, they allocate budget, and there's only one problem with that. In the end, customers don't care about it.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And where I see the discussion often focused around, Andy, is price, right? It's the dollars. It's the concern about the undercutting of price, but even beyond price, it's also about if you think about what is the fear generated from, it's the relationship also. You talk about the sales team, you talk about the the relationship with the distributor, you talk about the relationship with the end customer, disrupting that whole sort of flow. You did this marvelous thing years ago at Forrester where you laid out all the channels and how they're changing. And I think, that's really true. Today, the end buyer, we saw this in consumer, the end buyer in B2B has more power than they ever had in the past to make channel choices. And, I argue that manufacturers at the end of the day need to understand that end buyer's choice and why they're making it the channel choice, but they can't necessarily control it. So to your point, channel conflict will persist. Manufacturers shouldn't try to, you're not in the channel business. The channels are the channels and the customer will make their decision, right? So being in front of them is so how do you manage this in this world of marketplaces? You had some interesting data here that we're showing on the screen about, this is some stuff you did, I think, back at Forrester, right, Andy? So describe this for us.
Yeah, I call this the wheel diagram, and essentially what it says, and it seems becomes controversial for some reason. Still don't understand that to this day, except that I think all
Right.
the things you mentioned around companies being aligned a certain way, having a traditional. But basically, what this said was, for those who can't see this, there's basically three concentric circles with the brand in the middle, the
Yep.
channels in the next concentric circle, and then the outermost concentric circle where the customers are. And
Hmm.
what you can see is, for example, I call them B2B traditionalist customers. They don't want to buy things online. They're used to buying things through a sales rep or a will call window in a branch. They're going to go through your traditional distribution channel or traditional wholesaler. Let's say, they buy through Granger, the
Right.
offline version. Then there's a group of people who I call digital first B2B traditionalists. They might buy through Granger.com to get that product that 3M sells.
Right.
So that's great. That accounts for maybe 30-40% of the different options there. But then there's all this other stuff now that emerged in the last 10 to 15 years around people want to buy directly from you. And there's a lot of research that shows that people want to buy directly from a brand. Research I did showed that 40% of B2B buyers would prefer to buy directly from a brand manufacturer, all things being equal. There's kind of a halo effect around it. Like you're
Yeah.
buying directly from the people who made it, right? It's
Right.
not being handled by various people or diverted inventory in the worst case scenario. But and then half of those people, so 20% of all B2B buyers are willing to not only buy directly from them, but even pay a premium to do so. So,
Hmm.
if you're not selling directly through your website, then you're missing those people and leaving money on the table, and more importantly, avoiding important channels. And then there's horizontal and vertical channels, and of course, Amazon.
Right. Right.
The
Yeah.
next slide here shows that you've got to pay attention to each one of these slices of the pie,
Right.
because guess what? It's where customers are. It doesn't matter about all the stuff in the middle in the second concentric circle is all the channel conflict that customers don't care about, but that companies, for legitimate reasons, I don't want to begrudge them that, focus way too much on. And at the end
Yeah.
of the day, you got to be focused on where the buyers are.
Well, and it raises this next piece of data I'm showing here, Andy. We're seeing this. Buyers are now, in many cases, becoming more loyal to channel than they are to brand. This is a question that was posed in some research a couple of years back. It said on Amazon, would you buy from brands or sellers you've never heard of? Almost 65% said yes, they trust the channel. So, this loyalty has really shifted, and we've seen that that in fact at scale, to your point earlier, looking at Amazon business, it can really work. The buyers are there. $83 billion projected next year, 2025, by Bank of America. Incredible volumes, and not being there risks, in my opinion, the relevance of the manufacturer brand to that buyer, because the buyer's going to buy something else. But we have
Well,
to look at, and I think, go ahead, Andy. Mhm.
yeah, well, you know what scale gets you too is
Yeah,
scale actually establishes you as a viable channel.
yeah,
Not to overuse the word channel, because at the end of the day, especially with B2B buyers, trust is really,
yes.
really
Trust
critical.
is
And
huge.
you put the Amazon stuff up there. If you'd asked this question 15 years ago of Amazon, the number would not look like that. And the
Right.
reason why is because at that point in time, nobody in B2B trusted Amazon as a place to buy stuff. Now they do. And
Yep.
in a lot of people, it's just because they can return things easily, but
Right.
they can buy things easily, they can return things easily. And I think vertical marketplaces that achieve scale and have some kind of lasting business model are going to get the same benefit as this. Because when you're buying stuff in B2B, your job's on the line. You're not going to risk it over saying a few bucks, which is why sometimes price isn't the biggest issue.
Well, that's a good point. Trust, I would agree with you, and the relationship to some degree, but it's really about the trust. And what we have to look, I think, and this goes to our earlier point. Why do customers buy in these channels, right? And understanding that, is important. And then you can build your channel conflicts, management strategy around that. Here's some data that says that more than half of B2B buyers are now completing 25% of their purchases or more on online marketplaces. Okay, why? This is vertical, horizontal, all of them. Number one reason, discovering new products. It's about assortment. It's about, getting greater vendor choice, faster purchasing versus traditional channels, things like that. So, one of the things that you think, if we think about the use of a marketplace by a manufacturer to eliminate channel or ameliorate channel conflict. Quite frankly, these reasons don't actually apply, I don't think, as much to a manufacturer. And as we look at, where do these when we look at some of the highest volume marketplaces, Andy, in vertical marketplaces, manufacturers are not among them. I mean, showing some data here that shows where just about 2 years old, but it's still relevant. We're showing where the biggest marketplaces in B2B are in they're not launched and operated by manufacturers. These are vertical and horizontal marketplaces, Equipment Share, Indigo AG, others that are some of them are shipping related, marketplaces, but all these the product related ones are verticals. And I don't personally think that the manufacturer has as much of a reason, to have a marketplace itself. I think it sits better with distributors. I don't know if you fully agree with me. You did some research a couple of years ago that said you think this is a good model for manufacturers. I'm not sure it's as applicable.
Well, what's funny about this is distributors are marketplaces.
Right.
They are. Yeah. They're just cross manufacturer marketplaces, and that's great if your customers are going to that particular distributor. Right. But there's also this challenge of, if you're a manufacturer and you're selling through a distributor, that how do you maintain loyalty? I mean, the distributor might spiff you out with another brand manufacturer or their private label product, right? So there's channel conflict everywhere. And for people who just trust the distribution channel as the single best and only channel with which to sell, they forget that, wait a minute, I'm competing against a bunch of other manufacturers, and that distributor is not loyal to me.
Right.
They're going to go, and sometimes they're loyal to the lowest price they have. And did we forget about private labels? So there's a bunch of dimensions here. But again, you're not going to control any of this as a brand or a distributor. At the end of the day, you got to follow the customers. And I think your point on the last slide about why people use marketplaces really does reinforce the point about scale. Discovering new products, 72% of the reason why. Well, how do you... People are going there to discover new products. You better have new products. Right. In order to have new products, you're going to have to have scale. So you can't be a tiny vertical marketplace or a very niche-y, horizontal marketplace for very long. Because if you're not constantly giving people new products, and by the way, that could be the long tail. It doesn't have to necessarily be, the short tail. You can compete with the long tail, but that requires scale.
Even in specific niches, Andy, we followed some marketplaces like Julia Chamfer and others that are very niche-y, very specific. Even in that niche, she still has to have tens of thousands of products to meet the need of the reason the buyer buys there. So I think this model fits much better with distribution than it does with manufacturing, because I think it's a natural extension of their business model. So we asked our community, Andy, do first party or company owned e-commerce marketplaces complicate or resolve channel conflict? We put a poll in LinkedIn, and 57%, the majority, said complicate, because it just adds another channel to the mix you have to think about, right? So it's not a solution to channel conflict. I think that's the verdict we've come to, and the community has as well. Any comments on this?
Yeah, I come back to what I said earlier. It all matters is what customers are. You're not going to resolve or change anything. That's like saying, I don't like the weather outside, so I'm going to change the weather. No, you don't get to change the weather. All you can do is change your approach. You can put a coat on, you can avoid certain things, but you can't change it. This will be on ad infinitum forever. There will be channel conflict. The question is, how do you grapple with it? And I think you got to start with, I got to be where my customers are.
Amen. I'll say, I agree with you completely, Andy. If you're a manufacturer, you need to be in front of the customer wherever they want to buy. You're not going to control the channel choice. So you can help the channel do a better job, but you can't close your ears and go la 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 and ignore where the customer is. That's a recipe for disaster.
And also, you're not going to be able to control your channels that you don't control, by the way.
Right.
You're not going to be able to say, well, we've been selling through this distributor for 30 years and we got a great relationship with them. They will drop you like a hot rock if there's a better alternative, because they're running what's called a business. Okay.
Right.
And so, this idea, not that you should be disloyal to your channel partners. I'm not suggesting that, But this idea that they're loyal to you because you're loyal to them is bunk.
Right.
In this day and age, nobody's loyal to anything anymore. And so the only thing they're loyal to is a great customer experience, which means you got to produce that on your own site for the home games, also the away games. And you got to be everywhere that, again, your buyers are going to be.
All right. So we're at Friday 20 again, Andy. We're consistently talking too much, I think. I don't know. All good. Hopefully you all are enjoying this on your podcast if you're listening to it there or whatnot. But this is a fascinating topic. Let's go off on a few things before we end for the day. Some upcoming events coming. Some really exciting stuff. We've got Roundtable this week in Chicago that happened, and it was a fabulous event. 50 plus people were there, Andy. Just an amazing list of people. My goodness. Atlanta, we have another fabulous get-together in about 2 weeks, March 19th. Roundtable, we've got over 40 signed up for that one, I think. Dallas, Minneapolis, dinner's coming at B2B Online. So, folks, go to our website, click on events. You'll see all of our upcoming events. These are complimentary for practitioners. For the most part, our summit, we still have some complimentary tickets available for practitioners and for sponsors and folks who want to try to get in front of these folks. Certainly we also offer some select opportunities there as well. We have our summit coming up on June 4th, Andy. So excited about this. I think we're about 2/3, almost 3/4 full at this point in terms of registrants. The who's who will be there, 130 people at the University of Chicago's Gleacher Center. Again, right on our website. And don't forget about our forum, which is lots of activity happening on our forum these days. Folks coming in, asking questions, getting responses from other practitioners. This is our online forum, again, free for practitioners and only for practitioners. So Andy, that's our Friday 15 for this week. Any final words before we wrap up our Friday 22?
I just realized we're like a brand, and we're finding our customers wherever they are, right? Or at other people's events, at our events, we're creating events. It's like maybe we're a metaphor for what we're talking about here. You got to be where your customers are, and that's what we just. I was listening to you talk, I'm like, that's exactly what that is.
That's right. Yeah, our customers are our practitioners. So, folks, thanks again for joining. We will be back next week. And don't forget to look us up on Spotify, Google Play, or Apple Store and get your podcast version so you can listen to this while you're doing dishes. Thank you, everyone. We will talk to you next week.